Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're delighted to have you with us. So with that, we'll just go ahead and get started. Welcome to Registered Apprenticeship in Texas. My name is Pham, and I'm the lead apprenticeship specialist for the Texas Workforce Commission Office of Apprenticeship. And sitting right next to me is the lovely, beautiful, talented Miss Tara Cole. Miss Tara Cole. She is our contract grant manager. And if you have any questions, I think I passed out some of my business cards earlier, but you can always contact us at apprenticeshiptexas@twc.texas.gov. Feel free to contact us after the form if you have any questions. We have lots of ground to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started. So we wanted to start off and say, who are we? What do we do? What are some of the services do we provide? The apprenticeship team provides technical assistance and guidance to entities interested in learning more about registered apprenticeship programs. And for entities who want to become a registered apprenticeship program, we will help facilitate the application process. In fact, we'll do 70% of the work. Yeah, you heard me right. We'll do 70% of the work, what does that look like? We will help you fill out the forms. We'll walk you through the process. We'll explain what that looks like, and then we'll also submit those documents to the U.S. Department of Labor. And if there are other questions about workforce development programs, we will certainly be able to help provide or coordinate, facilitate those conversations if there are questions about workforce development. So with that, I want to ask Tara to go ahead and talk about grants and contracts.
So as Ann mentioned, I'm the lead grant manager for the Office of Apprenticeship, and we provide funding supports through two mechanisms. One of those is through our Chapter 133 state funded program, and the other is through our DOL awarded expansion funding. So Chapter 133 supports a portion of the related instruction for new and existing apprenticeship programs, whereas expansion supports the development of new programs by covering development costs, as well as related instruction, on-the-job training, and support services for new apprentices in new and existing programs. So I did want to take a moment. Our whole team is here today, and I know we've got a hybrid thing going on, but I wanted our other team members to stand up and introduce themselves. We've got our fearless leader, Desi Holmes, in the room with us today. Our newest team member, Weston Sythoff, is over there. He is one of our apprenticeship specialists. And I have another grant manager, Sheila Ripple. Yay! This is the whole team. You have exposure to us today. We also have a resource table out in the foyer area. So if you want to come introduce yourselves to us, have some discussion, we'll be available after this session. Thank you. Oh, yes, Desi.
I guess the only thing I really wanted to say after we got introduced is Weston has passed out a lot of the information to the people coming, but we will have extra resource material here in the room if you want some additional. And there's also the same information out on the resource table.
One right over here.
Thank y'all for joining us today.
And then for those in the audience virtually, if you would like a digitized the materials, just email us at apprenticeshiptexas@twc.texas.gov, and then we will get you those digitized materials.
Okay, so here's a quick program overview of the items we'll be covering today. As we walk through each of the items, I guess we're going to hold questions to the end, so that way the chatters at home can correspond as well. So we'll leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A. So we want this session to be informative for you guys, especially after lunch. Yay, we have the great task of keeping y'all awake, right? We're going to go over an overview of the Registered Apprenticeship Program. For those of you who don't know what apprenticeship is, every now and then we get a few of those still. We want to cover the model and structures. There are 5 key components we're going to go over. We're going to talk a little bit about business lingo and the typical employer language that we use or that they use. So there's always communication understanding. We're going to talk a little bit about the role of the workforce partners. We're going to take a deep dive into 3 specific partners when we get into those slides. And we're going to share with you some overview and information about Apprenticeship Navigators that we've been onboarding the last couple of years now, I believe. We're going to talk a little bit about some strategies and pitfalls. We'll leave you with some resources, and the last thing we'll cover is employer incentives. Oh, what's the funding? Everybody wants to know.
All right, so let's learn about what makes apprenticeship so appealing. It is a career pathway where the individuals are paid because they are full-time employees. They earn a paycheck from day one. And in addition to a career, it combines an education where the apprentice learns the didactic and related technical instruction coursework that leads to a national industry credential. In many cases, if a community college is the training provider, the apprentice may earn college credit as well as apprenticeship hours.
So how does the program model work? Businesses are typically the registered apprenticeship program sponsor, which means they are the employer of record. The apprentices are their full-time W-2 status employees, and they are providing the on-the-job training. Education providers provide the didactic academic instruction that is related to the apprenticeship program. Combined, the apprentice is receiving the formal education along with work experience that leads to a national industry credential and/or a degree. The benefit is the employer has skilled talent, which leads to productivity and profitability for their business. Now, what's the difference between a business and intermediary? Every now and then you hear the term intermediary. The biggest difference is that when an intermediary is the registered apprenticeship program sponsor, they are not the employer of record. They may be the training provider who is providing the related instruction and have employer partners who are employing the apprentices.
So what's the advantage of having a registered apprenticeship program? First, it's registered with the Department of Labor. It standardizes the training program and provides educational structure that will lead to a credential. Most importantly, registered apprentices are paid and include regular wage increases as the apprentice gains skills. And currently there are over 1,500 approved occupations for registered apprenticeships. And all registered apprenticeship programs must complete the 5 components listed here. So at minimum, the programs offer 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning and 144 hours of related technical instruction. And this is per year, per apprentice, regardless of industry or occupation. And one of the biggest takeaways from this slide is that embedded in all registered apprenticeship programs are rewards for skill gains. So as that apprentice gains more proficiency, then that apprentice receives wage increases. So let's talk about business lingo. Apprenticeship has its own language and vocabulary. We in the government also have our own language and vocabulary. So try using words and acronyms like WIOA, TANF, SNAP, dislocated worker, the list goes on. And you say that to a person in the business and their eyes will glaze over. I have seen it because I have used these government terms. So talking to employers in the right way is critical, and relating apprenticeship to what the employers already do, how they recruit, train, and retain their employees is important. So here are some typical phrases that we use and what the employers use. So when introducing apprenticeships to a business, start really by gaining an understanding of their recruitment, training, and retainment. Then help them to see and understand how apprenticeship programs may provide a more formalized, consistent, and repeatable approach to what they already do. Now, early in my career, when I provided technical assistance, I would use these common federal terms that I just mentioned. And today my language has changed slightly. Now, when I provide technical assistance, I let the employers know that there are 3 application forms that we need to fill out. And it's really to help distinguish the role of the program sponsor, identifying who the training provider may be, and then what are the work activities. So we outline those competencies.
Okay, so You need a whole team to get the work done. Workforce development partnerships bring together multiple perspectives and complementary needs from businesses, education and training providers, and workforce organizations. They offer resources to support the design, implementation, and sustain effective workforce development services. So 3 of those partners I want to talk about. The first one being the role of the workforce board. You may already know this, since we are at a workforce forum, that TWC, the state agency, is charged with overseeing and providing the workforce development services such as job matching, recruiting, and training to Texas job seekers and employers. We have 28 local workforce development boards as workforce solutions offices. They're branded that way, and they are part of the Texas Workforce Network system. So workforce boards are our link to services that help job seekers and employers. Not only do boards have the resources, information, and expertise to address employers' business needs, but they have the ability to bring other partners in that may be needed, such as here at TWC, educational providers, economic development chambers, and those are just a few to name, right? So workforce boards can play various roles within apprenticeship. Boards have a broad network they work with, allowing them to create regional partnerships to expand apprenticeships and strengthen sector strategies. They can convene area partners to ensure apprenticeship programs meet the need of industry. They can promote apprenticeship opportunities through recruitment events, stakeholder discussions, mixers, awareness seminars. Boards can provide funding supports to offset costs towards related technical instruction and on-the-job training. Boards can develop preparatory or readiness programs to prepare participants for successful entry into a registered apprenticeship. And boards can outreach to potential participants, screen for candidates for their skill assessment. And I think that's it. Next slide. So now the role of the employer. Employers can be engaged at any time through a registered apprenticeship process. Of course, we want them initially in the discussion because it is their workforce needs that we're here to address. So they can play various roles such as design of the program model and identifying the operational roles for program administration. They can identify the wage progression schedule during and at the completion of the program. They share in the successes to maintain momentum and community support through testimonials or stakeholder events, anywhere they can present and share the word. They evaluate progress and make program adjustments as needed. They can identify the skills or competency requirements within their talent pipeline. They can identify the experienced mentors that will be needed to provide the on-the-job training. And they too can outreach, screen, and interview for apprentice positions and assess for competency mastery at designated intervals throughout the training program. So the third partner in this network, commonly what we work with, is the role of education. In this particular instance, we're going to be speaking about the community colleges. So community colleges can also design and develop an apprenticeship program. They have the ability to coordinate activities among the program partners, including program administration. They, being in their wheelhouse, can develop the curriculum and identify any credentials or college credit that will be learned at the completion of the program. They also can assess supportive services or funding sources for apprentices. They too have funding in their wheelhouse. They can deliver the related technical training or training related instruction, as we like to call on the business lingo, to the apprentices. And they also have the ability to recruit and outreach to potential program participants.
So one of our long-term strategies included the vision of expanding apprenticeships statewide. So you've met the whole team here today, and we can't do it alone. So what we did was we helped develop the role of Apprenticeship Navigators to help us to engage and encourage employers and potential sponsors to start new registered apprenticeship programs, as well as expand any current programs. So how do we do this? We expand apprenticeship opportunities by developing new programs, by adding new occupations to existing apprenticeship programs, and then increasing the number of registered apprentices. So what's the role of the navigators? They participate in TWC onboarding and booster trainings. They conduct and host at least one roundtable event that brings together key workforce stakeholders and industry employer partners. They coordinate awareness sessions, which may even consist of signing ceremonies at the high school level, at their college level. They have career signing day events. And then they also do targeted recruitment events for registered apprenticeship partners. That's not all. They collaborate on workshops with subject matter experts, either here with us at TWC, local businesses, industry leaders, chambers of commerce's, economic development areas, colleges, technical colleges, just to name a few. And they also provide research in terms of labor market information and trends to determine what's the market look like. What does the industry growth look like? They also help coordinate with other programs like AEL, which is the Adult Education Literacy, Vocational Rehabilitation, WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, that may be needed to further help and support the development of these registered apprenticeship programs. And last but not least, they attend the TWC annual Texas conference. So this year, we're hosting our annual conference in McAllen, September 22nd and 23rd. We are glad to say that the registration portal is open and we hope to see you there.
And if you got one of our packets, the Register Now postcard's in there, by the way.
Shameless plug.
Sorry, had to get it out there. So these apprenticeship navigators are currently funded through expansion grants that we've put out on the street through a competitive bid process. So like Ann mentioned, navigators are extension of us. They help to promote apprenticeship as an effective tool for developing a workforce. They are mentored in the fundamental foundation of developing an apprenticeship program, and they serve as a key point of contact to assist future partners throughout the process from concept to implementation. So what areas do they represent? We have 18 navigators, but they represent 14 areas. And you see on this map here where they're all located. These are some of our current expansion grantees. We have community colleges, workforce boards, and a couple of nonprofits listed on there. And they do the work of what we do in sharing the word about apprenticeship, engaging with employers and bringing them to the table to help them develop apprenticeship programs if need be. Of course, we're there to coach them through the whole process. Do we have any navigators in the room with us today? I'm not seeing any. Oh, yay. Hey, where are you from, sir? Cameron, thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate it. I was hoping we'd have some more because I wanted to introduce them all and say, hey, great job, guys. Y'all are making us look good. So thank you, sir. All right.
So the apprenticeship navigators, they collaborate outreach efforts with us, workforce intermediaries and other stakeholders. They, in coordination with local organizations, may also take place to ensure that these new apprentices have access to additional services to assist them with their specific education, training, or workforce goals. So what does the coordination efforts look like? Well, it may include connecting with the workforce solution offices, the AEL providers, vocational rehabilitation offices, and other organizations that can leverage resources to help facilitate the growth in apprenticeship programs.
So we want to talk a little bit about some strategies in action, not just as a navigator, but anytime we talk with employers or anybody interested in developing a registered apprenticeship program. So depending on our role in the apprenticeship space, whether we are a workforce board, a community college, an intermediary, or an employer, we all have varying perspectives and approach apprenticeship through different lenses. Everyone approaches outreach a bit differently, which is great. There is no right or wrong way to outreach. Outreach can take on many forms and at times can intersect. which we like to say that's when you know your efforts are on the right path because the word is getting out and you have more interest than you can handle. Yay. So before we begin outreaching, sometimes we need to assess the current landscape to determine how best to focus our efforts. Often we find ourselves in situations where we have these funding opportunities to do these certain things with, but we don't have the partners we need to fulfill those objectives. So at times we just don't know where to start. Here are some strategies to think about when planning any kind of outreach effort with regard to apprenticeship. We've done this in-house actually, but one of the things we've coached our navigators to do is conduct a labor market analysis to determine what the current and future landscape is and where to channel your efforts. TWC's Labor Market and Career Information Department puts out a lot of great resources. One of these tools is their one-page projection overviews by workforce area. These overviews provide a 10-year forecast of occupations in a workforce area, such as occupations adding the most jobs, the fastest growing occupations, the largest associate degreed occupations, and other statistics. Another resource LMCI provides are economic profiles by workforce area, with projections on the fastest growing industries, as well as other tools that may be useful as you plan any kind of outreach effort. A second to that is looking at your low-hanging fruit possibilities, such as leveraging current employer partners you work with that may be interested in exploring apprenticeship, utilizing your current apprenticeship partners to attract new partners through employer testimonials or reaching out to their partners, those vendors or suppliers that they work with, and seeing what's currently in your wheelhouse that may identify common threads or training needs by bringing partners together. One example of this is working with a college who might have an employer partner under their corporate arm, assessing what the training needs are of an employer and bringing in their deans of specific studies to determine what curriculum the college already has in-house that can fulfill a training need. Is there some instruction or curriculum that the college can offer to help develop? Or can the employer provide some of the instruction with their own subject matter experts, as well as the college providing some of the related didactic training? And a third to this is looking at targeted outreach efforts by hosting those industry-focused roundtables and events to invite businesses to come learn about the apprenticeship model, the benefits apprenticeships offer, and how a business can get started. To make these events impactful and more relatable, bring in your apprenticeship employers who can speak to why they went the apprenticeship route and how it's impacted them and their business. Attend and ask to be on the agenda of chambers and economic development meetings as a platform to spread the word of apprenticeship and how businesses can benefit from such a model. Another outreach tool is through social media. Depending on the platform used, media buys, I see Marcus is in the room, we've done this ourselves. Media buys can be cheap and relatively inexpensive and can generate quality business leads if targeted correctly and given a call to action inviting employers to come learn.
So to continue, communication challenges have been amplified in the last 2 years. Often we encounter issues with reduced hiring needs, companies feeling resistant to provide employees' personal information, scheduling conflicts, concerns about the cost of apprenticeship, and then the challenge with talking to the right person in an organization. So here are some additional strategies for articulating the value proposition of what makes apprenticeship attractive to companies. Learning how the apprenticeship model relates to the current hiring and training processes of these businesses allows us to begin articulating the value of apprenticeship in the language that those employers understand. So when meeting with employers, translate components of the apprenticeship model into the language of business. For example, instead of using terms like related technical instruction, ask the employers about their onboarding process and how do the new employees learn. Instead of asking or talking about work processes, ask companies about their skill needs. Instead of wage progression, ask how and when employees earn merit raises. Once the employers see how apprenticeship relates to their current hiring and training processes, then talk to the companies about other benefits of apprenticeship. It can help them enhance and formalize what they already do when it comes to recruiting, training, and retaining. So for example, once developed, the apprenticeship training becomes repeatable. Every new hire has someone to show them the ropes. By identifying the mentors under the training apprenticeship model, it clarifies those relationships and expectations. The companies spend money on training, but under apprenticeship, the training costs are offset by recruitment savings, lower initial wages, and reduced turnover. And finally, look for opportunities to build a customer relationship by adding value where the employers, whenever possible. Offer these companies assistance in developing apprenticeship standards for their most critical positions and share with them what a training outline for the occupation might look like when measuring competencies and assessing effectiveness at various stages of training. So by doing so, you add tremendous value for the company while building a stronger relationship with them in the process.
So through the years, we have found ways to overcome challenges we've often faced when engaging with employers by clearing hurdles through redirected approaches such as focusing on retention efforts, targeting smaller businesses for buy-in, utilizing chambers for info sessions, encouraging upskilling opportunities for incumbent workers through competency-based apprenticeship models, where a current employee may be able to fast track through an apprenticeship training based on an assessment of their competencies or other strategies. So some communication strategies for overcoming apprehensions about apprenticeship might look like this: addressing how apprenticeship models can fill talent gaps. That apprenticeship enable companies to tap into a wider talent pool of hardworking candidates willing to be trained. Another is addressing wage concerns by letting employers know that apprenticeships allow companies to pay entry-level wages for apprentices, affording them the ability to invest the savings into the training and mentoring that will grow employees' talents to meet company requirements. And that the Department of Labor does not dictate how much of an increase an apprentice should be given once they've advanced or completed training, just that a wage increment is given based on the skills gain. And another strategy is addressing business concerns such as apprehensions about abundant paperwork and state compliance requirements. We are the state, right? Administrative requirements for registered apprenticeship programs include tasks such as registering the employer into an approved registered apprenticeship program with the Department of Labor, reporting of data requirements for new apprentices, and ongoing monitoring and review of their apprenticeship program. So some suggestions to that could be that another community partner or intermediary organization could act as the sponsor of an apprenticeship program that might ease the burden for businesses from handling these responsibilities. Workforce boards, community and technical colleges, community-based organizations, and training providers can all serve as sponsors to lessen concerns of difficult or burdensome administrative requirements.
So I really like this slide. So when engaging, beware of the bad apples. So what does that look like? What are those? Those are those entities that are not in it for the right reasons. Trust me, they are out there. So what are some of the common red flags to look out for? Entities that claim they have all this front-loaded training and then place their individuals with employers and have so-called commitments to place. So remember, apprenticeships is a job first. It is that the apprentices are W-2 full-time status employees from day one. look out for those entities that approach you with wanting to start an apprenticeship, but have no identified employer partners. Look out for those entities that claim they are doing it all. They're a one shop. They are the employer of record. They are providing the RTI. They are providing the OJL, but they need funding to get started. Look out for those entities that are strictly focused on funding. How much are they going to get? When they're going to get it? Beware. Look for those entities that are stating they only have part-time workers or hire contract labor. And lastly, look for those entities that are putting the full cost of tuition on those apprentices. So these are not the true apprenticeship models. Rule of thumb I just mentioned, it's a job first. We must have an employer sitting at the table. Without the employer sitting at the table, we do not have a registered apprenticeship program. And so the reason that the employer is so important, because they are the ones that are paying the wages for these apprentices during the OJT portion. And the RTI and OJT typically happen in tandem unless the occupation requires certain certification or security levels prior to being able to apply their skill set. And then also look for those funding interests because it's there to help offset costs, but not to fully fund 100% of the program.
I feel like we need to repeat that.
Yeah.
Not to fully fund 100% of the program. Okay, so how do we turn maybes to yes? We always have employers that are kind of on one side of the fence. I'm not sure I want to venture over. So a few strategies we've learned over the years to convert business interest into apprenticeships. One being initiate approaches by targeting specific industries and offering apprenticeship as a viable, cost-effective approach to talent development. Focus on one or two high growth industries in your area and begin researching major employers within these industries to identify companies with the greatest number of job openings. From that, look at companies with a demonstrated skill need who have vacancies or job postings in positions that the Department of Labor has already approved, meaning they're already apprenticeable. Have these sample work processes, yet we're using TWC terms, readily available to show employers a training framework has already been developed, that they aren't having to start from scratch. And a third option is help address employer concerns about apprenticeship program costs by comparing their current approach, such as recruitment, screening, supervision, higher wages, unfilled positions, and retention rates to the benefits of hiring through an apprenticeship, lower recruitment costs, lower initial wages, fewer unfilled positions, higher retention rates. Also factor in available resources, including recruitment assistance through the workforce system. That's what we're all here for, right? Mm-hmm. To screen candidates and provide work readiness training and related instruction or funding supports that may be available within their organization or area.
So we also, before we leave today, want to leave you with some resources. Now you can always come to our team, the Apprenticeship Texas team here at TWC for questions and resources. But in case you are interested in learning more, we recommend that you also visit apprenticeship.gov and Workforce GPS. And these are two great DOL websites that offers you multitude of videos, success stories, materials, webinars, statistical data, and online training. These are free tools that can help provide you with additional resources to help you create and innovate approaches to workforce development practices for registered apprenticeships.
Okay, everybody wants to know about the funding, right?
This is what you were waiting for.
Listen up. So the companies we worked with in the past are constantly looking at ways to drive improvements in safety, quality, delivery, cost, and service. No company can do it alone, and we understand there is a cost factor. So this is why we offer a variety of employer incentives. So as I mentioned earlier in our intro, TWC has two funding mechanisms that support apprenticeships. One is our state funding for apprenticeship programs that have a designated apprenticeship committee in their program standards. And the other is our federal apprenticeship expansion funding program, which we publish through the Comptroller's Texas Smart Buy website and follows a request for application format. So a little bit about the state funding mechanism. TWC, as provided in the Texas Education Code, Chapter 133, grants funds to local education agencies. Those are usually ISDs or community colleges and apprenticeship committees to support a portion of the cost of job-related classroom instruction and registered apprenticeship training programs. So registered apprenticeship training programs must partner with an LEA, or they come in on their own through their apprenticeship committee. And let's see, those funding cycles, hey, we're getting ready to start one. Those funding cycles start up in June of every year. So notices will be going out, funding, and a notice will be put on TWC's webpage that the funding cycle is open. And anybody interested in the Chapter 133 who has an apprenticeship committee can apply for those fundings through a planning estimate stage that's due at the end of June. So the second, a little more about the federal apprenticeship expansion funding. That's our Department of Labor awards that TWC has received. Yay. So federal apprenticeship expansion funding, as we've branded it, Apprenticeship Texas, supports apprenticeship expansion by engaging industry and workforce intermediaries, developing apprenticeship programs. Yes, we literally develop programs. And we outreach to new sectors and underrepresented populations. Expansion funding is accessed through a partnership currently with either a workforce development board or a community or technical college. And those funding mechanisms go out through a competitive bid process. So those are through an RFA. They get published through the Comptroller's website, and you have to submit an application and whatnot. That's two mechanisms our office handles. Federal apprenticeship funding. Each year, the U.S. Department of Labor, this is once you become a registered apprenticeship program, by the way. Each year, the U.S. Department of Labor announces funding opportunities, some of which are focused on apprenticeship expansion activities. And the Department of Labor posts all of these funding opportunities on their DOL grants website. And if you want to come up to us later after this, we can provide you the link to that. That's how we've gotten some of our funding. That's how registered apprenticeship programs can get some of their funding. Intermediaries, you name it, they also put out funding opportunities. Another service that TWC offers is Skills Development Fund. I know y'all have heard about the Skills Development Fund. It's also administered through TWC, but through the Outreach and Employer Initiatives Division. It's one of our premier training funds that allows up to $500,000 per business for training that is customized to meet the business needs. The target average cost per training is about $2,000, and the training is for full-time employees. That too can cover apprenticeship training. Skills for Small Business funding works in a similar format as skills development, but it is geared for companies with less than 100 employees. The average cost per new employees is about up to $1,800 and $900 or up to $900 for incumbent workers. And there are tuition fees that are covered there for about a 12-month period, but that too can cover smaller registered apprenticeship programs. And every employer is eligible for tax credits. We all know that, right? So are registered apprenticeship programs who have an employer. So eligible employers can receive a federal tax credit ranging from $1,200 to $9,600 for each qualified employee under TWC's very own Work Opportunity Tax Credit Program. And then something about a $9,000 over a 2-year period for employees hired who were long-term public benefit recipients prior to hire. I guess that's an eligible target population. But TWC has this posted on the website on how you can access the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. Boards also have funding, and we're not here to dictate how much funding or if there's any funding, but the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act It can support registered apprenticeship programs through local workforce development boards. They can finance primary components of a registered apprenticeship program, including on-the-job training, related technical instruction, and supportive services if individuals such as apprentices or prospective apprentices are eligible for WIOA services as a qualified adult, dislocated worker, or youth as defined within that WIOA criteria. So hey, there is funding out there.
So to recap, there are 6 steps in starting an apprenticeship program. So 1, determine your workforce need. And there's some questions we always ask. Do you have challenges in finding skilled talent? Do you encounter high turnover? Do you have skilled talent nearing retirement? And what are your long-term workforce needs? Number 2, identifying your partners and resources. So contact your Apprenticeship Texas team member.
Yay.
Discuss the employer need to partner with a local workforce development or training provider. Does the employer want or need to partner with a local education institution? And are there community-based organizations or economic development or other critical partners that are needed to be successful? Number 3, determining the related technical competencies. Will you provide classroom instruction in-house, or do you want to partner with a third party? Is it important for you to align your classroom instruction with other industry credentials? Will you pay for the cost of the classroom training, or do you need to identify other options? Number 4, designing your program. How will you select the individuals to participate in your program? Do you want your program to serve new employees or incumbent workers? How long does it take for someone to be fully proficient in their job? What skills, competencies, and abilities must these individuals possess? How will you know that they have mastered a skill set? Is it based on time? Is it based on competency? Maybe it's a mixture of both. And how will you compensate these individuals as their skills and competencies increase? Number 5, outreach and implementation. So how do you go about promoting and outreaching for your program? Do you recruit and select participants, rewarding prior experience as needed? Do you identify mentors and or levels of supervision to ensure quality instruction and safety? So then the last one is that we say implement and begin training. Last but not least is item number 6. Assess and continuously improve. So receive recognition from USDOL for meeting the requirements for national registration. Assess the program and monitor the participants' success moving forward, and then continuously improve the quality of the program over time.
So that brings us to questions. Are we ready to answer any kind of questions?
A brave soul in the audience. She raises her hand timidly.
And here's our email address, by the way, in case you didn't catch that earlier.
Okay, so this is just for clarity purposes. So if I'm out in the field and I run across an employer that is interested in starting an apprenticeship program, do I refer them to you guys?
Absolutely. But we
Okay.
would also in the communication loop. We always want them
Yes.
to have you sitting at the table. But yes, feel free to refer that interested employer to us.
Okay.
And then between us, us, you, and the employer, we'll discuss what their workforce needs are. If they're interested in becoming an apprenticeship program sponsor, what does that look like? The timeline, kind of manage their expectation.
Okay.
We want to transfer our knowledge onto you as well. So when you
Mhm.
engage other employers, you have the conversation and know how to carry some of that conversation. But we're always here to help facilitate that from the get-go.
But for the most part, we would at least reference them to the site.
Or
If-
us
if it get-
directly.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Typically, and if we get an engager, somebody comes in through an email or a phone call, we usually set up an initial call.
Okay.
So we do a discovery call, basically.
Okay.
What are your needs? What are your challenges? And through that conversation, we determine, is apprenticeship even right for them? Maybe apprenticeship isn't even their thing.
Mhm.
But we also feel like we're a gateway to other services that TWC has to offer. So if apprenticeship isn't it, we can route them through another service within the network.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question.
I think we got one in the back there.
Thank you. I think it was mentioned earlier, but to clarify, the employer of record is who? It's not the employer, right?
The employer of record is the employer.
Oh, okay.
So the employer identifies who wants to become their apprentice. And then they also have that responsibility of monitoring, tracking, and then providing the 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning. Now, they don't have to be necessarily the registered apprenticeship program sponsor. They can collaborate and partner with another entity. But yes, the employer of record is the employer. Another great question. Who's going to ask us a third question? Is there?
Oh, yes, gotta take her.
Thank you. If we partner with another entity, we've already done several registered apprenticeships. And I apologize, we didn't know to contact you all. Is there a benefit in including you all as well?
Of course, we'd love to be included. One of the things we like to be involved in is the conversation to help facilitate navigating through those waters. That's why we developed the Apprenticeship Navigator role through our expansion grants. Because a lot of times workforce development boards, and this is not a put down, but the business services unit rep is communicating with employers all day long. So it was just one more tool to add to their portfolio to talk to employers about, hey, there's this apprenticeship model you might be interested in. But they had to have the lingo and the knowledge to be able to explain what apprenticeship is. Once you get a taker, or maybe a consortium of employers who want to move forward into a registered apprenticeship program, and you've got it, you know what you're doing. Maybe you've already got a connection with Department of Labor, ATR, we call them, apprenticeship training representative, and you're developing through that path, that's fine. That's okay. Of course, we would love to know what you're developing, who you're working with, because as we get funding mechanisms, sometimes we want to share with everybody in the space, hey, there's these opportunities out here, and we love to be able to support as much as we can.
And then I want to add, that's a good question. Another benefit of working with us and getting us involved is that we are a gateway, that if it's beyond just apprenticeship programs, there may be other services, wraparound services that the employer may need, that we would be able to connect and facilitate that conversation, those services to them.
Did we have any chat questions?
Yeah, we'll ask the moderator if there were any questions online.
that's okay.
No? Okay. Oh,
That's
okay.
true. If you have questions, you can always email us at our email address. I'll put our boss on the spot. Desi, you want to offer up anything?
I would just say if you're too shy to ask a question in here, or if you have great questions that come up as you move back to your own areas, that Apprenticeship Texas, it is manned by all of us, any of our staff. And I would pretty much commit, you get an answer that day, if not an hour. I mean, if you email us at 6:30 at night, you might still get an answer that day, but
Only
if it-
Desi would answer after 6 o'clock.
We're not allowed
Just-
to work past 5.
we do respond. That's not
Yes.
just a catch-all email box so that you don't bother our personal emails. That's so that all 5 of us currently, and hopefully eventually 8, will be answering that email box. And I do have to say, we're pretty quick, and people even come back and say, isn't this the state? We answer quick. And And even if we don't have the exact answer that you need, we'll still communicate and say, give us a couple of minutes to research that and we'll get back to you. You won't find too much of a more customer-friendly group than this one. We're here to help y'all.
I guess that leaves us with, thank you.